was an article titled, "Peyton Manning is a loser and so are you." The guy says, "Last night the Seattle Seahawks won the Super Bowl, but perhaps that's not what you all heard. Maybe you heard it like this: last night Peyton Manning lost the Super Bowl. I watched the first half of the Torchies with my kids, so I can't say I was completely tuned in. But I saw enough to feel sick at my stomach. It was a terrible game, and I don't mean that as a fan hoping for the adrenaline rush of a tight score. I mean it as a human being watching a team of human beings fail in front of 96.88 million spectators. It was hard to watch. I have cried, and this morning I saw a picture of Manning walking through the confetti, dejected, and I may have cried again. This morning at the gym, all anyone on ESPN cared to talk about was Manning's spectators' defeat. At the press conference, just moments after the game, the Broncos fielded question after question about Manning's ability. Does his playoff record tarnish his career? Will this loss be Manning's legacy? And then a reporter asked Manning to his face, "Was tonight an embarrassment?" And Manning said this, "It's not embarrassing at all. I would never use that word. The word embarrassing is an insulting word, to tell you the truth." He said, "We played a great team." And he was exactly right. The Seahawks have arguably one of the fourth best defenses of all time. And over the course of this season, the Seahawks have allowed exactly 16 passing touchdowns, an average of 1 per game. They allowed the fewest number of passing yards per attempt of any team in the league. For goodness sakes, they all call themselves the Legion of the Boom. There are 32 teams in the NFL, and every one of them are composed of some of the most talented athletes out there on this earth. And to those teams, one wins the Super Bowl. The odds are never in your favor. So why do we expect our team to win, and why is it embarrassing to lose? We will now transition from Peyton Manning to you and I and everyone else, so keep up. For a long time, I thought I could be perfect, or that I should be perfect. I tried all the time to never make mistakes. I avoided failure as if it were the sole purpose of life. I assumed if I tried my hardest, I would win, and if I lost, it's because I was not trying hard enough. So I tried harder. When I failed, in public especially, I was not just embarrassed, I was mortified. I felt exposed, weighed, and found wanting. But that's changing for me, and here's why. I've learned failure is a natural, unavoidable part of human beings, and that's good news. It's good news because it's not weird to fail, and it's not unexpected. It's not improbable. You, human being, will lose. And when you do not need to be embarrassed. In Bible class on Sunday, we read about confession, and we ask why more people don't confess their sins to one another. The book of James promises confession brings healing, and yet we avoid it. Sure, confession will only bring pain. I suspect we don't confess because it's embarrassing, because we think our failures and our sins make us different. It may be weird, but the exact opposite is true. We're united in our weakness, united in our complete inability to save ourselves, and when we admit our weakness to another person, we make room for this person to be weak too. So listen to me say, it is okay to lose sometimes. I do a lot. Peyton Manning does too. You know, the other thing that I thought as I pored over the football stats today, what a miracle it is to actually win. Did you know that Manning completed 34 passes last night? He set a Super Bowl record for the most completed passes. And it wasn't enough. Remember, everybody, it takes a lot to win. We Christians require daily intervention from the Creator of the universe. And we're still a mess. A smaller mess, a freer mess, a forgiven mess, but still a mess. We need to give ourselves a break, and we need to give everyone else a break too. And that's all I have to say about that.
Please remain standing for our gospel lesson, which comes from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 5, verses 13 to 20. We continue with the Sermon on the Mount. Jesus says, "You are the salt of the earth, but if salt loses its saltiness, how will it become salty again? It's good for nothing except to be thrown away and trampled under people's feet. You are the light of the world. A city on top of a hill can't be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a basket. Instead, They put it on top of a lampstand, and it shines on all who are in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before people so they can see the good things you do and praise your Father who is in heaven. Don't even begin to think that I have come to do away with the law and the prophets. I haven't come to do away with them, but to fulfill them. I say to you very seriously that as long as heaven and earth exist, neither the smallest letter nor even the smallest stroke of a pen will be erased from the law until everything there becomes reality. Therefore, whoever ignores one of the least of these commandments and teaches others to do the same will be called the lowest in the kingdom of heaven. But whoever keeps these commandments and teaches people to keep them will be called great in the kingdom of heaven. I say to you that unless your righteousness is greater than the righteousness of the legal experts and the Pharisees, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. Sodium and chlorine will kill you, but you put the two together and it becomes the most important substance on earth. Every bit of life requires salt. When Jesus talks about salt, we think of table salt, and when it rains, it pours salt, and salt, we have plenty of salt, but you know, salt is hugely important. Salt improves the flavor of our steak, makes meat last longer. We salt and cure hams. Salt is a powerful and useful element, and it's no wonder that Jesus uses it as a metaphor or a simile for our faith. Salt. You are the salt of the world. If you should lose your saltiness, how could you ever get it back? All it'd be good for is throwing on the ground and people trampling over it. We are salty Christians. And that's the way Christ makes us. Now, all salt isn't that great. Salt in the sea, when we need fresh water to drink, becomes a problem because we can't drink salty water. But there is a thing called desalination. Watch this.
Why are we even talking about water desalination? Well, because quite frankly, we're on the brink of a global water crisis. As the global population rises, so does the demand for water, which puts pressure on the planet's finite supply. Add to the scarcity the fact that we're polluting what little we have left, and you can see why desalination is becoming an important issue. So what is it? Well, water desalination is a process that removes salt and other minerals to create fresh, drinkable water. Used on many seagoing ships and submarines, interest is now focused on developing cost-effective ways of providing fresh water for human use in regions where the availability of fresh water is or becoming limited. How do you do it? While technological advances to improve water desalination are occurring every day, it remains an expensive and energy-intensive process. The main method of desalination is called multi-stage flash distillation, which uses heat to evaporate water, leaving the salt behind. This accounted for 84% of all desalination in 2004. The other way is reverse osmosis desalination, which pumps water through filtration membranes. Desalination is gaining ground amongst water-strapped nations. Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, the United States, China and Israel are the top 5 desalination markets.
Desalination is fantastic for getting drinking water. Desalination, a disaster when it comes to Christians. So what are the things that take the saltiness out of us? So as we use desalination as a model, we are the salt of the world, and we are here to share it with the world. In many ways, just like salt is powerful and useful in many ways, our saltiness is here to improve the world. But we could lose it, and we do lose it. And there are 3 ways: chemicals, reverse osmosis, and heat. Let's talk about chemicals. In the desalination reverse osmosis process, they start by putting chemicals in the water that latch on to the ions of sodium and the ions of chlorine and make them heavier and weigh them down so that when it's time to filter them, it gets rid of the salt more efficiently. We have chemicals in our lives, dangerous chemicals in the world around us. that grab our saltiness and drag it down. The people you hang around with. Maybe the books and movies you read. Maybe the way you think about things. We have one particular saltiness I'm particularly irritated by right now, and it's our 24/7 news services. Have you ever wondered why they can't show the good news? Why do they always have to show the problems and the disasters and all that's going wrong and what's going to go wrong? In fact, there's one news service that's dedicated to providing you with your prejudices and preconceptions, pandering to your fears, to create anger. Because television is never about the program, it's all about the money. And it's more profitable to those who have money to have you angry and hopeless. It's a toxic chemical that comes into our living rooms and teaches us a gospel, actually the opposite of gospel, the bad spiel, that life is horrible and it's only going to get worse. And it weighs us down. Weighs us down. The second is reverse osmosis. Now, actually, osmosis is when there's salty water on one side of a permeable membrane and there's fresh water on the other side. And the natural motion is for the fresh water to move through this membrane and to join the salty water. The struggle of nature is to reduce the saltiness and balance things out. This is why if you were to be in a shipwreck and try to swim in the ocean, you will die of dehydration because the fresh water will be sucked out of you. So reverse osmosis just does the other thing. It takes the salty water and it pushes it through that membrane. The saltiness has been made heavier with the chemicals, and now it pushes us through this membrane, and it comes out fresh. What membranes are we being pushed through? Are you being pushed through, let's see this slide, trash talk? Where you just use words that just belittle yourself and others? I want to tell you, I want to confess here. I got in the habit of it. A couple of words I used. And they got rid of the anger for a moment, but they left me angry. So now I use the word blessed. I'm going to get over this blessed sermon in no time flat. How about anger? I love that. Anger is but one letter short of danger. And yet we let our anger flow, and we won't let it go. The next one is toying with the tragedies of life. I have no idea what that picture is, but think of the times that we turn tragedy into just another plot or just a news article or a news clip. And it's not because of the tragedy, it's just because people watch the fire. The last one is our eyeballs turning to idolatry. Do we do that? These are the filters. These are the filters of our world, the world of people. And when we're pushed through that, we lose our saltiness. And it just makes us bland. Good for nothing but throwing on the ground and stomping under our feet. The next one is heat. That's the old-fashioned way. Over 80% of desalination is done by simply boiling the water. It's distilling. You boil the water, you catch the steam, you condense the steam, you've got fresh water. Our problem is that when we get the heat, when things go bad, we get angry. Nothing goes right. And then we respond to the brokenness thrown at us with more brokenness. Have you ever had a situation where somebody kind of ticked you off? I mean, more than ticked you off. And you came back to try to tick them off more? Where you tried to get even? Have you ever noticed that getting even never works? Because in the anger, you don't want to get even. You want to get ahead. and it destroys us. And it takes all the salt of Christianity out of our hearts. Our hope is to keep cool. Not just to let go and nothing bothers us, but to keep cool in Jesus Christ. Because he is here to guide us through. His whole statement in this passage is not just about the saltiness. It's about living a life in this world, and we are called to be better than the biggest hypocrites. We are called to keep every law, not because keeping the law makes us good, but because it keeps us with God. But we've got a real leg up in becoming salty. Our leg up is this: we have Jesus Christ. Where do you think the salty comes from? He is an infinite source of this wondrous property that serves us in so many ways, serves others, serves our own lives, serves God, serves Christ, because we become the life of Christ on this earth. And we can, no matter how unsalty we feel, we turn to Jesus, and he will lift us up, and he'll make us whole.